You're listening to the One Man Show Network.
Welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast with your host, Aaron Weinbaum.
Hey everyone, welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Weinbaum, and today I am picking fights for the second fight on Fight Island, Yaz Island. I'm sorry, it would be the third fight card of Yaz Island. Joseph Benavidez versus Deiveson Figueiredo for the vacant flyweight championship. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. But if you are on the Periscope, feel free to jump on in and help pick some fights. And I see my mic's coming a little low there, so I apologize about that because, I can see why. Yeah, I don't have the correct setup right now. Unbelievable. Luckily, I have an audio. There we go. I have an audio backup of this, and everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be just fine. I do apologize if you are watching the fights that are currently taking place. It's probably just going to be a half an hour of the announcers, and I'm going to go ahead and do this podcast anyway, and I'm going to be done before the fights start. If the fights do start, let me know. I'm going to hop off of here. But like I said, if you're on Periscope, help me pick the fights. Always some technical difficulties here and there, but hey, like as Max Holloway says, it is what it is. But so anywho, at least I look good. Like I said, feel free to hop in, ask me anything you would like, or help me pick a fight. So this is, like I said, the third event on Fight Island, but it's hashtag UFC Fight Island 2. So first up at Bantamweight. So these guys are coming in at Bantamweight, and I do need to make sure. Yep, Brett Johns and Montel Jackson. No, not that Montel Jackson. I think it's a fighter, Montel Jackson. But so anyway, let's talk about this first. So I think this is another case of two guys that don't want to cut weight, and I don't blame them. I think that things are not ideal for weight cutting there, but I'm not there. I do know that Chris Fishgold missed weight for tonight's fight, which is kind of strange. That but Jared Gordon, of course, made it. I am looking forward to that fight, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about So these guys are. I just double checked here. These guys are both featherweights that are fighting at bantamweight. So I assume they just don't want to cut weight is the thing, and that's cool. I like it. Why do it if you don't have to? There's not a title on the line. There's not a title contention on the line, unless you're Conor McGregor, I suppose. But taking a look at Brett Johns first. He just beat Tony Gravely. Before that, 2 losses to the tops of the bantamweight division. Pedro Munoz, Aljamain Sterling. Before that, he won every fight. So, and some good wins too, Joe Sato, you may remember him challenging TJ Dillashaw for the title back in the day. Albert Marias. So, looking at Montel Jackson, I'm not as familiar with him. But he has had several fights in the UFC, and he's had some notable wins, too. Felipe Claras, Andre Sukamouth, Brian Kelleher by submission. This is back in 2018. He did lose a decision against Ricky Simon. Ricky Simon is no slouch. So, this is kind of, to me, this is kind of a pick'em. But I like Brett Johns. I think he, I think that fighting the tops of the division like he did, and taking them to decision. Both these fights with Sterling and Munoz went all the way to decision. I think we'll give him the edge here, and subsequently, I think he wins this fight. The uncrowned lightweight champion of the world, Joe Duffy, the man to have beaten Conor McGregor back in the day, taking on Joel El Fenomeno. Let's see if I got that right. El Fenomeno Alvarez. I say I got a lot of looky-loos here, so feel free to help me pick this fight, because I am not so familiar with Joel El Fenomeno Alvarez. He does, believe it or not, have 2 UFC fights under his belt. So, a loss against Damir Ismagulov and a win against Danilo Belliardo. So, going back to Joe Duffy here, and probably the best fight I ever saw him in was I'm going to see how long ago this was now. 2016. My gosh, that fight against him and Dustin Poirier went back to 2016. It was a loss, but gosh, it's kind of crazy. That fight was violent, man, and I just remember I thought Joe Duffy's face was broke. I thought these guys were just battered and bloody. And then, he comes back and beats Mitch Clark, beats Rizzo Medati, and then it loses, of course, to James Vick and then Mark Diakes. I can't ever say his name correctly. But El Fenomeno, he's fought a bunch of guys I don't know. And I'd like to think this is kind of a way to get Joe Duffy back in there a little bit. And, he's always got that name value because he does hold a win over Conor McGregor. And I like to think he's going to win this fight. I do have a question on Twitter. Thank you for asking. Jared Gordon or Fish Gold, I think he's trying to ask me. So if you listen to the last podcast, I did pick that fight. And, I was leaning one way, I was leaning the other, but in the end, I think I like Jared Gordon in this fight. He did make all the way to championship weight. I know he's got some strange things going on with his coaches and whatnot, but I don't know, man. He has fought some tough guys at 155 pounds, including that last fight with Charles Oliveira. So, yeah, I did pick Jared Gordon. But you asked, I answered. Thank you for your question. Middleweight, Jack Hermanson, Kevin Gastelum. What an amazing co-main event, man. This could main event easily. And, man, Hermanson was like the next big thing. And then all of a sudden, he runs into Jared Cannonier, who probably should be challenging for the title, but I don't know what's going on with that. But wins against guys I didn't think he'd win against. He beats Jacare Souza, Gerald Meerschaert, Thales Leadys, before he retired. David Branch, who was thought to be the next big thing, submits him round one. Kind of crazy here. But Kelvin Gastelum, all of a sudden loses 2 in a row, but against the top guys in the world, Darren Till, Israel Adesanya, those are his last 2 losses. Now Darren Till, you got him fighting Robert Whittaker, who was champion before Israel Adesanya. So it's kind of amazing, really. So, one impressive win with Kelvin Gastelum. He's right back there because everyone loves him, some Kelvin Gastelum, So, let me know what you think. I have several people watching here on Periscope. Let me know what you think about this fight. But, before that, also has a win. I'm talking about, of course, Kelvin Gastelum. Also has a win over Jacare Souza. A win over Michael Bisping, retired Michael Bisping. Now, give Michael Bisping his due. He took that fight on short notice after fighting George St. Pierre. Goes to Singapore 2 weeks later. Not probably the best decision of his life. Did lose to Chris Weidman, but he cracked him. I mean, he cracked Chris Weidman and about took him out. And, they went all the way to round 3, and, Weidman was just a much bigger guy, got on top of him, submitted him. He starts Vitor Belfort, even though it turned out to be a no contest later, because I think he had a little bit of the God's lettuce in his system, I guess, or the devil's lettuce, whatever you want to call it. Wins over Tim Kennedy. I thought he had no chance against Tim Kennedy. Oh, thank you for all these hearts, man. Someone is jamming down on the heart button. Thank you so much. Feel free to say hi. Johnny Hendricks. A win over Johnny Hendricks. And this was a catch weight. Hendricks missed weight, actually, not Kelvin. So, yeah, amazing. Amazing. The strength of schedule this guy has had. Did lose to Neil Magny. Win over Nate Marquardt. We're going all the way back to 2015, though. A loss against Tyron Woodley, but it was a split decision. Even though Kelvin missed weight, it was still a split decision. This was 5 years ago. This was prime Woodley. When Woodley was starching people. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is I like Kelvin Gastelum against Jack Hermanson, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hermanson pulled this off as well. All right, a rematch. This shouldn't be a rematch. I hate it when guys, this was a title fight, okay? So for the belt that Henry Cejudo vacated because he won the 135-pound title and basically abandoned the 125-pound title. I don't blame him, really. But I would have liked to have seen Henry Cejudo run the fight back with Benavidez that he lost. But he didn't, and that's fine. But here's the rub. Figueiredo missed weight for that fight. So Figueiredo could not have won that fight, or won the title, rather, by winning that fight. But Benavidez could. So he still took the fight, but then he loses, gets knocked out, and now here we go again, running it back a few months later. We'll see what happens here, and I certainly hope there is no upside except for winning the title. What if that guy misses weight again? I don't know. Do you take the fight? Do you risk it? And then all of a sudden you're concussed twice in a row? I don't know. But let's take a look at both these guys' records, because I picked Benavidez to win this one, and I picked this fight before I knew what he weighed, before I knew what he would weigh, rather. But Benavidez has wins over everyone here in the recent future, except for Figueiredo. Jussier Formiga, Dustin Ortiz, Alec Perez. He hadn't lost since Sergio Pettis in 2018, and that was a split decision as well. But a win over Triple C Henry Cejudo. Okay, now let's take a look at Figueiredo. I didn't pick him to win that fight. It's kind of strange, and it was mostly over strength of schedule and the fact that he lost to Jussier Formiga. Okay, but he beat Tim Elliott. He beat Alexandra Pantoja. And by the way, I apologize for not picking the Tim Elliott fight for the fight tonight. I do pick him to win, so I don't want to get into that, but I listed it to pick, and I totally skipped over it. So, anywho, wins over John Moraga, Joseph Moraes. I'm going to go with Benavidez again, even though he got knocked out. I'm going with Benavidez again, and probably, I would hope he's the reigning flyweight champion. I hope that keep that division alive. So we'll see. Wow, lots of people watching. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I guess I'm going to go ahead and end this. So enjoy the fights tonight. I hope I didn't take you away from any of the prelims. And until next time, until next week, where I pick some more fights, shalom.
Please remember to support the podcast by visiting the affiliate links on AaronSaysWhat.com.